Welcome back. I think this series deserves a little or slight introduction. You know, just to put out what we're doing and why. Live stream isn't available. Why not? Okay, we'll try it again. Let's go. Let's go. Let's go. All right. Perfect. Why am I doing this? Why does this even exist? Why is this even a concept? On a Saturday morning, or am I even trying to stream or read a book, as the kids would say? I I was streaming last night, and not last night. I was streaming some days ago, and it was regarding Aiden Ross, and I found a video, not purposefully. I was just reacting to him and Joe Budden having beef, quote unquote, and I watched him struggle to read the word depicted, and I was like, it's some stuff. Some stuff are good to share. Like, you don't have to keep it all to yourself. And one of those good things that are good to share, in my personal opinion, is reading. And I want to be completely honest about where I'm at, my current level. I'm not like a bookworm, like the people who watch a lot of like the people who reads a lot of books are. That's not me. I'm not a bookworm, but I do understand the value of reading. I started reading maybe 2023, like seriously reading in like 2023, like finishing an entire book. Of course, I've read in school, but like that's just, to me, there's different types of reading. Reading in school and reading, Mockingbird and, Forrest Gump, not Forrest Gump, Fahrenheit 451, and those books, those assignments that you have to do for schoolwork. I've read those, but to read for leisure purposes, I've only started doing that maybe 2023, and even then, I haven't been reading like seriously, like sitting down every day reading for hours on end. There are people that do that. And I am not one of those people. And I am not one of those people. And if you're watching this and thinking this is what this is, it isn't. I just want to be honest and upfront about that. However, I do understand the value of reading. Just make it okay to read. Like, it's cool to read. Like, you know what I'm saying? Having read a few books now, I have a little library. Although it's not on display, it's right under the TV. I understand why people read. It changes your mindset. It changes you. It challenges you. It exposes you to new ideas, new things. Besides increasing your vocabulary, I don't think I read to increase my vocabulary or just to show off that I know big words. like what's that word? I just forgot the word Aiden Ross couldn't say. Anyway. That's not the reason I personally read. I read for knowledge and for challenging my thoughts and my current way of thinking. Also, people who write these books, they go into a lot of research before reading these. So I don't know if this will be a Saturday thing. It might be a Thursday thing. It might be a Friday thing. It might be a whenever I get time in the week thing to actually stream it. But I do read every day for 30 minutes or 15 whenever I get the chance. So I always start a timer because I don't want to worry about whether or not it's been 30 minutes because I have other things to do right now. Later on today, we're going back on stream. This is just a trial phase. I just want to try it to see where it lands or how it lands. I am an old man, like the kids would say. I am an old man. I think streaming doesn't have to be all entertainment. It could be whatever you're into. And I just want to share something that I am into with y'all. And that's reading for 30 minutes a day. We're not trying to solve the world. We're not trying to be, whatever. As Louis Rossman would say, just clean up your little side of the world. Just clean your little corner. You don't have to clean up the whole world. You know what I'm saying? Just clean up the mess in your bedroom. Let's start there. So I am currently reading this. I am not far. I am at page 22. However, I'm going to start over because the idea to read on stream came to me. I had a marker just to mark where I'm currently at. Anyways, I often lose my page markers, and I don't know why. And I don't know, maybe I need to buy them by bulk or something. Because I don't like creasing my books. I don't know. My camera is kind of silly. I don't enjoy creasing my books. But we're going to be reading Start with Why. How great leaders inspire everyone to take action. It doesn't have to be a cup of tea. You know what I'm saying? I personally some people like to read fiction. Some people like to read whatever. Whatever you read, just read. Just read. My personal goal currently is to grow my leadership philosophy, to grow into leadership. That's my career aspiration. To grow myself, a lot of things that I'm reading financially, to be more financially astute. That's the books I am currently reading. That's my consuming material. I don't read all self-improvement or whatnot, but that's currently my niche. That's where I'm at. That's what I'm reading. Anyways, we're going to get started. 30 minutes on the clock. Start with Why. How great leaders inspire everyone to take action. And this, I'm sure nobody's going to watch it. It's going to get 1 view, 2 views, and whatnot. I'm going to give it a try maybe for a few months. See if anybody messes with it. If not, shish. If not, we pivot. We do something else. Because, I'm sure it's going to be pretty boring to sit here and watch somebody read. But also, if you are driving, you could listen to it on a road trip and whatnot. So, 30 minutes on the clock. Like I said again, I've already read all the way to page 22 or 23. Also, when I read, one thing I like to do is to take a few minutes after reading just to reflect or write down a few things, concept that I've learned. And that's it. Okay. Let's put timer 30 minutes. I always put the timer because I don't want to worry about, it's going to be having a hard time to focus. I just did. 30 minutes. I put the timer because I don't like to worry about whether or not my 30 minute is up. I have a phone. All right, let's do it. Start with Why by Simon. How great leaders inspire everyone to take actions. There are leaders and there are those who lead. Leaders hold a position of power or influence. Those who lead inspire us. Whether individuals or organizations, we follow those who lead not because we want to, but because we want to. Whether individuals or organizations, we follow those who lead not because we have to, but because we want to. We follow those who lead not for them, but for ourselves. This is a book for those who want to inspire others and for those who want to find someone to inspire them. Beautiful. for Victoria, who finds good ideas and makes them great. And also, this is my first time reading on stream or reading out loud. So, be ready for some mistakes. Preface: the power of why. When I first discovered the thing called the why, it came at a time in my life when I needed it. It wasn't an academic or intellectual pursuit. I had fallen out of love with my work and found myself in a very dark place. There was nothing wrong with the quality of my work or my job, per se. It was the enjoyment I had for that work that I had lost. By all superficial measurements, I should have been happy. I made a good living. I worked with great clients. The problem was I didn't feel it. I was no longer fulfilled by my work, and I needed to find a way to rekindle my passion. The discovery of why completely changed my view of the world, and discovering my own why restored my passion to a degree multiple times greater than any other time in my life. It was such a simple, powerful, and actionable idea that I shared it with my friends. That's what we do when we find something of value. We share it with the people we love. Inspire. My friends started making big life changes. In turn, they invited me to share this idea with their friends, the people they love. And so the idea started to spread. It was at this point I decided to turn myself into the guinea pig. It didn't seem right that I would share or promote a concept that I didn't practice myself. So I was going to practice it as wholly as I could. The only reason I am where I am today, this representative of why, is for one reason and one reason only: because of other people. I have no publicist. I've had only very little national press coverage, yet the concept of why is spreading far and wide because it resonates with people on such a visceral level that they share it with those they love and care about. That I was given the opportunity to write a book about the concept has allowed the depth of the idea to spread without me. The TEDx talk I gave that was posted on TED.com continued to spread far and wide. Not because of any social media strategy. It spreads because this message is inherently optimistic. It is inherently human. And those who believe in it share it. The more organizations and people who learn to also start with why, the more people there will be who wake up feeling fulfilled by the work they do. And that's about the best reason I can think of to continue sharing this idea. Inspire On, Simon Sinek, New York, July 28th, 2011. Introduction. Why start with why? I feel like I need like a little pencil to follow along. Because usually when I read, I be with my I'm gonna just read normal. Anyway. Introduction. Start with why. This book is about a naturally occurring pattern, a way of thinking, acting, and communicating that gives some leaders the ability to inspire those around them. Although these natural born leaders may have come into the world with the predisposition to inspire, the ability is not reserved for them exclusively. We can all learn this pattern. With a little discipline, any leader or organization can inspire others, both inside and outside the organization, to help advance their ideas and their vision. We can all learn to lead. The goal of this book is not simply to try to fix the things that aren't working. Rather, I wrote this book as a guide to focus on and amplify the things that do work. I do not aim to upset the solutions offered by others. Most of the answers we get, when based on sound evidence, are perfectly valid. However, if we're starting with the wrong question, if we don't understand the cause, then even the right answers will always steer us wrong. That eventually. The truth, you see, is always revealed eventually. The stories that follow are those individuals and organizations that naturally embody this pattern. They are the ones that start with why. The goal was ambitious. Public interest was high. Experts were eager to contribute. Money was readily available. Armed with every ingredient for success, Samuel Pierpont Langley set out in the early 1900s to be the first man to pilot an airplane. Highly regarded, he was a senior officer at the Smithsonian Institution, a mathematics professor who had also worked at Harvard. His friends included some of the most powerful men in government and business, including Andrew Carnegie and Alexander Graham Bell. Langley was given a $50,000 grant from the War Department to fund his project, a tremendous amount of money for the time. He pulled together the best minds of the day. A veritable dream team of talent and know-how. Langley and his team used the finest materials, and the press followed him everywhere. People all over the country were riveted to the story, waiting to read that he had achieved his goal. With the team he had gathered and ample resources, his success was guaranteed. Or was it? A few hundred miles away, Wilbur and Orville Wright were working on their own flying machine. Their passion to fly was so intense that it inspired the enthusiasm and commitment of dedicated group in their hometown of Dayton, Ohio. There was no funding for their venture, no government grants, no high-level connections. Not a single person on the team had an advanced degree or even a college education. Not even Wilbur or Orville. But the team banded together in a humble bicycle shop and made their vision real. On December 17, 1903, a small group witnessed a man take flight for the first time in history. How did the Wright brothers succeed where a better equipped, better funded, and better educated team could not? It wasn't luck. Both the Wright brothers and Langley were highly motivated. Both had a strong work ethic. Both had keen scientific minds. They were pursuing exactly the same goal, but only the Wright brothers were able to inspire those around them and truly lead their team to develop a technology that would change the world. Only the Wright brothers started with why. In 1965, students on the campus of the University of California, Berkeley, were the first to publicly burn their crafts. In 1965, students on the campus of the University of California, Berkeley, were the first to publicly burn their draft cards to protest America's involvement in the Vietnam War. Northern California was a hotbed of anti-government and anti-establishment sentiment. Footage of clashes and riots in Berkeley and Oakland was beamed around the globe, fueling sympathetic movements across the United States and Europe. But it wasn't until 1976, nearly 3 years after the end of America's military involvement in the Vietnam conflict, that a different revolution ignited. They aimed to make an impact, a very big impact, even challenge the way people perceived how the world worked. But these young revolutionaries did not throw stones or take up arms against an authoritarian regime. Instead, they decided to beat the system at its own game. For Steve Wozniak, the Woz, and Steve Jobs, the co-founders of Apple Computers, the battlefield was business, and the weapon of choice was the personal computer. The personal computer revolution was beginning to brew when Wozniak built the Apple I. Just starting to gain attention, the technology was primarily seen as a tool for business. Computers were too complicated and out of the price range of the average individual. But Wozniak, a man not motivated by money, envisioned a nobler purpose for the technology. He saw the personal computer as a way for the little man to take on a corporation. If he could figure out a way to get it in the hands of the individual, he thought, the computer would give nearly anyone the ability to perform many of the same functions as a vastly better resourced company. The personal computer could level the playing field and change the way the world operated. Woz designed the Apple I and improved the technology with the Apple II to be affordable and simple to use. No matter how visionary or how brilliant, a great idea or great product isn't worth much if no one buys it. Wozniak's best friend at the time, the 21-year-old Steve Jobs, knew exactly what to do. Though he had experience selling surplus electronic parts, Jobs would prove to be much more than a good salesman. He wanted to do something significant in the world, and build a company was how he was going to do it. Apple was the tool he used to ignite his revolution. In their first year in business, with only one product, Apple made $1 million in revenues. Wow. By year 2, they did $10 million in sales. Jesus. in their fourth year, they sold 100 million worth of computers. And in just 6 years, Apple Computers was $1 billion company with over 3,000 employees. That is crazy amount of success in a short amount of time. Jobs and Woz were not the only people taking part in their personal computer revolution. They weren't the only smart guys in the business. In fact, they didn't know much about business at all. What made Apple special was not their ability to build such a fast growth company. It wasn't their ability to think differently about personal computers. What made Apple special is that they've been able to repeat the pattern over and over and over. Unlike any of their competitors, Apple has successfully challenged conventional thinking within the computer industry, the small electronic industry, the music industry, the mobile phone industry, and the broader entertainment industry. And the reason is simple. Apple inspires. Apple starts with why. He was not perfect. He had his complexities. He was not the only one who suffered in a pre-civil rights America, and there were plenty of other charismatic speakers. But Martin Luther King Jr. had a gift. He knew how to inspire people. Dr. King knew that if the civil rights movement was to succeed, if there was to be a real lasting change, it would take more than him and his closest allies. It would take more than rousing words and eloquent speeches. It would take people, tens of thousands of average citizens, united by a single vision, to change the country. At 11 a.m. on August 28, 1963, they would send a message to Washington that it was time for America to steer a new course. The organizers of the civil rights movement did not send out thousands of invitations, nor was there a website to check the date. But people came, and they kept coming and coming. Pause. All told, 250,000 people descended on the nation's capital in time to hear the words immortalized by history, delivered by a man who would lead a movement that would change America forever. I have a dream. The ability to attract so many people from across the country, of all colors and races, to join together on the right day, at the right time, took something special. Though others knew what had to change in America to bring about civil rights for all, it was Martin Luther King who was able to inspire a country to change, not just for the good of a minority, but for the good of everyone. Martin Luther King started with why. There are leaders and there are those who lead. With only 6% market share in the United States and about 3% worldwide, Apple is not a leading manufacturer of home computers. Yet, the company leads the computer industry and is now a leader in other industries as well. Martin Luther King's experiences were not unique. Yet, he inspired a nation to change. The Wright brothers were not the strongest contenders in the race to take the first manned, powered flight, but they led us in a new era of aviation, and in doing so, completely changed the world we live in. Their goal were not different than anyone else's, and their systems and processes were easily replicated. Yet the Wright brothers, Apple, and Martin Luther King stand out among their peers. They stand apart from the norm, and their impact is not easily copied. They are members of a very select group of leaders who do something very special. They inspire us. Just about just about every person or organization needs to motivate others to act for some reason or another. Some want to motivate a purchase decision. Others are looking to support, others are looking for support or a vote. Still, others are keen to motivate the people around them to work harder or smarter or just to follow the rules. The ability to motivate people is not in itself difficult. It is usually tied to some external factor. Tempting incentives or the threat of punishment will often elicit the behavior we desire. General Motors, for example, so successfully motivated people to buy their product that they sold more cars than any other automakers in the world for over 77 years. Though they were leaders in their industry, they did not lead. Great leaders, in contrast, are able to inspire people to act. Those who are able to inspire give people a sense of purpose or belonging that has little to do with any external incentives or benefits to be gained. Those who truly lead are able to create a following of people who act not because they were swayed, but because they were inspired. For those who are inspired, the motivation to act is deeply personal. They are less likely to be swayed by incentives. Those who are inspired are willing to pay a premium or endure inconvenience, even personal suffering. Those who are able to inspire will create a following of people, supporters, voters, customers, workers, who act for the good of the whole, not because they have to, but because they want to. Though relatively few in number, the organization and leaders, though relatively few in number, the organizations and leaders with the natural ability to inspire us come in all shapes and sizes. They can be found in both the public and private sectors. They are in all sorts of industries, selling to consumers and to other businesses. Regardless of where they exist, they all have disproportionate amount of influence in their industries. They have the most loyal customers and the most loyal employees. They tend to be more profitable than others in their industry. They are more innovative, and most importantly, they are able to sustain all these things over the long term. Many of them change industries. Some of them even change the world. The Wright brothers, Apple, and Dr. King are just three examples. Harley Davidson, Disney, and Southwest Airlines are three more. John F. Kennedy and Ronald Reagan were also able to inspire. No matter from where they hail, they all have something in common. All the inspiring leaders and companies, regardless of sizes or industry, think, act, and communicate exactly alike. And it's the complete opposite of everyone else. What if we could all learn to think, act, and communicate like those who inspire? I imagine a world in which the ability to inspire is practiced not just by a chosen few, but by the majority. Studies show that over 80% of Americans do not have their dream job. I mean, shit's even more now, I bet. If more knew how to build organizations that inspire, we could live in a world in which the statistics was the reverse. A world in which over 80% of people love their jobs. People who love going to work are more productive and more creative. They go home happier and have happier families. They treat their colleagues and clients and customers better. Inspired employees make for stronger companies and stronger economies. That is why I wrote this book. I hope to inspire others to do the things that inspire them so that Together, we build the companies, the economy, in a world in which trust and loyalty are the norm and not the exception. This book is not designed to tell you what to do or how to do it. Its goal is not to give you a course of action. Its goal is to offer you the cause of action. For those who have an open mind for new ideas, who seek to create long lasting success, and who believe that your success requires the aid of others, I offer you a challenge. From now on, start with why. Wow. Okay. Part one. Part one, a world that doesn't start with why. Assume you know. I think part one is called Assume You Know. Assume you know. On a cold January day, a 43-year-old man was sworn in as the chief executive of his country. By his side stood his predecessor, a famous general who, 15 years earlier, had commanded his nation's armed forces in a war that resulted in the defeat of Germany. The younger leader was raised in the Roman Catholic faith. He spent the next 5 hours watching parade in his honor and stayed up celebrating until 3 o'clock in the morning. You know who I'm describing, right? Yes. It's January 30th, 1933. I'm describing Adolf Hitler, and not, as most people would assume, John F. Kennedy. The point is, we make assumptions. We make assumptions about the world around us based on sometimes incomplete or false information. In this case, the information I offered was incomplete. Many of you were convinced that I was describing John F. Kennedy until I added one minor little detail, the date. This is important because our behavior is affected by our assumptions and our perceived truths. We make decisions based on what we think we know. It wasn't too long ago that the majority of people believed the world was flat. Those people are stupid. I don't mean to say that, but yeah, they are stupid. This perceived truth impacted. And honestly, when I read, that's how I read too. Like, reading is not supposed to be some stiff action. Like, I try to make it fun for myself. Like, if I find something to be hilarious, like, based on my experience, I make side commentary. Like, this is not some stiff thing. Like, you can read for fun. Anyways, the perceived truth impacted behavior. During this period, there was very little exploration. People feared that if they traveled too far, they might fall off the edge of the earth. So for the most part, they stayed put. It wasn't until the minor detail was revealed, the world is round, that behaviors change in a massive scale. Upon this discovery, societies began to traverse the planet. Trade routes were established. Spices were traded. New ideas like mathematics were shared between societies, which unleashed all kinds of innovation and advancements. The correction of a simple false assumption moved the human race forward. Now consider how organizations are formed and how decisions are made. Do we really know why some organizations succeed and why others don't? Or do we just assume? No matter your definition of success, hitting a target stock price, making a certain amount of money, meeting a revenue or profit goal, getting a big promotion, starting your own company, feeding the poor, winning public office. How we go about achieving our goals is very similar. Some of us just wing it, but most of us try to at least gather some data so we can make educated decisions. Sometimes this gathering process is formal, like conducting polls or market research. And sometimes it's informal, like asking our friends and colleagues for advice or looking back on our own personal experience to provide some perspective. Regardless of the process or the goals, we all want to make educated decisions. More importantly, we all want to make the right decisions. As we all know, however, not all decisions work out to be the right ones, regardless of the amount of data we collect. Sometimes the impact of those wrong decisions is minor, and sometimes it can be catastrophic. Whatever the results, we make decisions based on a perception of the world that may not, in fact, be completely accurate. Just, just as so many were certain that I was describing John F. Kennedy at the beginning of this section, you are certain you were right. You might even have bet money on it, a behavior based on an assumption. Certain certain that is, until I offered that little detail of the date. Not only bad decisions are made on false assumptions, sometimes when things go right, we think we know why. But do we really? That the results went the way we wanted does not mean you can repeat it over and over. I have friends who invest some of his money. I have a friend who invests some of his money, some of his own money. I have a friend who invests some of his own money. Whether he does it well, whenever he does well, it's because of his brain and ability to pick the right stock, at least according to him. But when he loses money, he always blames the market. I have no issue with either line of logic, but either his success and failure hinge upon his own prescience and blindness, or they hinge upon good and bad luck. But it can't be both. So, how can we ensure that all of our decisions will yield the best results for reasons that are fully within our control? Logic dictates that more information and data are key. And that's exactly what we do. We read books, attend conferences, listen to podcasts, and ask friends and colleagues, all with the purpose of finding out more so we can figure out what to do or how to act. The problem is, we've all been in a situation in which we have all the data and gets lots of good advice, but things still don't go quite right. Or maybe the impact lasted for only a short time, or something happened that we could not foresee. That's my life, for sure, for sure. A quick note to all of you who correctly guessed Adolf Hitler at the beginning of this section. The details I gave are the same for both Hitler and John F. Kennedy, and it could have been either. You have to be careful what you think you know. Assumptions, you see, even when based on sound research, can lead us astray. Intuitively, we understand this. We understand that even with mountains of data and good advice, if things don't go as expected, it's probably because we missed one. Sometimes small but vital details. Oh, sorry. Oh, I'm getting dry mouth. Sorry, y'all. We understand that even with the mountains of data and good advice, if things don't go as expected, it's probably because we missed one, sometimes small but vital detail. In these cases, we go back to all our sources, maybe seek out some new ones, and try to figure out what to do. And the whole process begins again. More data. However, doesn't always help, especially if a flawed assumption set the whole process in motion in the first place. There are other factors that must be considered, factors that exist outside of our rational, analytical, information-hungry brains. There are times in which we had no data, or we choose to ignore the advice or information at hand and just went with our gut, and things worked out just fine. Sometimes even better than expected. This dance between gut and rational decision making pretty much covers how we conduct business and even live our lives. The timer went off, but we're gonna finish reading this section. We're gonna finish reading this last few pages. But usually that's how I do it. Like, I know it's 30 minutes, but I'll read that section and then next stream we'll start back at 2. There are times in which we have no data, or we choose to ignore the advice or information at hand and just went with our gut, and things worked out just fine. Sometimes even better than expected. This dance between gut and rational decision making pretty much covers how we conduct business and even live our lives. We can continue to slice and dice all the options in every direction, but at the end of all good advice and all the compelling evidence, we're left where we started. How to explain or decide a course of action that yields the desired effect that is repeatable. How can we have 2020 foresight? There is a wonderful story of a group of American car executives who went to Japan to see a Japanese assembly line. At the end of the line, the doors were put on hinges, the same as in America. But something was different. But something was missing. In the United States, a line worker would take a rubber mallet and tap the edges of the door to ensure that it fit perfectly. In Japan, that job didn't seem to exist. Confused, the American auto executive asked at what point they made sure the door fit perfectly. Their Japanese guide looked at them and smiled sheepishly. We make sure it fits when we designed it. Nah, no shit. In the Japanese auto plant, they didn't examine the problem and accumulate data to figure out the best solution. They engineered the outcome they wanted from the beginning. If they didn't achieve the desired outcome, they understood it was because of a decision they made at the start of the process. At the end of the day, the doors on the American-made and Japanese-made cars appeared to fit when each rolled off the assembly line. Except the Japanese didn't need to employ someone to hammer doors, nor did they need to buy any mallets. More importantly, the Japanese doors are likely to last longer and maybe even be more structurally sound in an accident. All this for no other reason than they ensured the pieces fit from the start. What the American automakers did with the rubber mallet is a metaphor for how so many people and organizations lead. When faced with a result that doesn't go according to plan, a series of perfectly effective short-term tactics are used until the desired outcome is achieved. But how structurally sound are those solutions? So many organizations function in a world of tangible goals and the mallet to achieve them. The ones that achieve more, the ones that get out of a fewer people and fewer resources, the one with outsized amount of influence. The ones with an outsized amount of influence. However, build products and companies and even recruit people that are fit based on the original intention. Even though the outcome may look same, great leaders understand the value in the things we cannot see. Every instructions we give, every course of action we set, every result we desire start with the same thing, a decision. There are those who decide to manipulate the door to fit to achieve the desired result, and there are those who start from somewhere very different. Though both courses of action may yield similar short-term results, it is what we can't see that makes long-term success more predictable for only one. The one that understood why the doors need to fit by design and not by default. Yay, we did it. Man, okay, yeah. That's 30 minutes in the bag. Chapter 1, out the way. Whenever is the next time, we're gonna do carrots and sticks, chapter 2 or part 2. And then that's it. That's all I do. 30 minutes, I put in my 30 minutes, call it a day. If you have a journal, you journal what you learn or any reflection. Like for me personally, my reflection is, and you know, I don't have to agree. That's the other thing. Books are good, but you don't have to always agree with the author. You can challenge their frame. You can challenge your thoughts or what you're thinking. Like, as in the Japanese example, you know, you can design from the beginning, but also sometimes it's good to go back to the drawing board, like the Americans. Like if you see something that's working better or your design isn't working better, if you learn new information, we're always gathering and learning new information, it's okay to go back and change things. Like those executives, what they should do, the American executives, what they should do is go back to the drawing board. If the Japanese cars are lasting longer, they are better designed, they don't need rubber mallets, which is more money to buy those mallets, to employ those employees. It's okay to go back to the drawing board and start again. But also, if designing without the mallet takes way too long of a timeline, because two things can be true, and it's faster for you to get your product out, by employing someone and using the mallet. Sometimes it's okay to do that, but it's always best, like this book is amplifying, to start with the thoughts or the mindset of getting it right from the start, designing for the door to fit. Yeah. Anyways, thank you for watching. This is 30 minutes of Start With Why. How great leaders inspire everyone to take action. I will catch you in the next one.